The Portfolio Composer, episode 191.
You're listening to the Portfolio Composer podcast with your host and coach, Garrett Hope, where he teaches you what it takes to master the business end of writing music through mindset, marketing, and business skills. Make sure to sign up for the newsletter at theportfoliocomposer.com for exclusive offers, business insights, and information not shared on the podcast. And now, for this episode of the Portfolio Composer.
Be passionate for what you do and go about it for the right purpose. Stay true to who you are. I know that sounds cliche, and it is, but it really is what matters, because whether you succeed at a high level or just an average level, you're going to really just still continue to enjoy what you do.
This episode is brought to you by Dorko, the music notation software from Steinberg. Just released, Dorko Pro 2 is a major new version, including features for musicians working in film and TV music and in jazz, rock, and pop. Steinberg have also released Dorko Elements, a new entry-level application that packs all of the essential power of Dorko Pro into a simple, streamlined package that is ideal for those getting started. Find out more later in the show. Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of The Portfolio Composer. I am Garrett Hope, your host, your coach, your teacher. And again, I'm so grateful that you're spending time with us today. I had a lot of fun recording this episode because I got to sit down with a personal friend of mine, someone that I have gone to church with and with whom I have made music. So we have communicated on a very deep musical level as well, which is great. He's a drummer and a fantastic individual. But more importantly, he is a restaurant owner. And as you'll hear me explain in the interview, I believe that there are a lot of parallels between what we do as composers, thinking as small business owners and the risks involved and what it takes to launch our careers, to what it takes to build a restaurant. So that's the basis of this conversation. So this is with Gabe Lovelace, who is an incredible person. He's a great father and a good friend, and with one of his great friends and his cousin, Eric, runs ground-up restaurants. And you'll hear his journey along the way, some of his failures, and lots of his wins, and more wins lately than not. He is the owner of one of my family's favorite restaurants here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And whenever I have friends come to town, I take them there because it's just so good, and it's local, and it's fresh, and it's amazing. So I think you'll get a lot out of this interview. And let yourself be taken away by the parallels, because there's a lot you can apply to your business and how you're building your career to what Gabe and Eric did to build their restaurants. Well, like I told you, this podcast is about the business of being a composer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my overriding philosophy is that we really are small business owners as composers, what we do, how we think about things. And actually, we're making art. And that's its own thing. But once the art is created, what are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
We have to let people know about it. Well, that's marketing. And then we need to sustain ourselves, make a living. And we do that by getting commissions and selling copies of our music. So we have to learn about sales, and we have to learn about networking and promotion, and then just running a business in general. So cash flow, finance, everything.
Right.
And it occurred to me that I think being a restaurant owner is pretty similar, because you're operating a business, clearly, but it's more than just selling a product. But like being a composer who's making art, there's a little bit more risk. There's potential for incredible profit. There's a few composers who really make it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few restaurant owners who really make it, but more restaurants fail than don't.
Yeah.
And it's a process. So I just kind of wanted to dig into that with you.
Yeah, I think the stat is somewhere in the 80% range of restaurants that open and close. I think the benchmark is like 7 years. They say if you can get to 7 years, you'll probably be around forever. As long as you don't do something crazy. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to get out there and be different than somebody else and unique in your own ways. But yeah, composing is so art driven, obviously, but. And our industry, food is too, So like what we do is a kind of a different version of art. And Eric, and my business partner, is the creative mind behind that, and he's very artistic in what he does. So
let's start kind of at the beginning.
Sure.
tell us how you and Eric came. I mean, you have this elaborate mythology you've built on the Honest Abe's website, which I just love. How did you and Eric, and kind of tell us a little bit more about who Eric is,
Sure,
and your relationship with him, come to even start making food?
Right, yeah. So Eric and I are cousins. Been really close since we were kids. We're even in a band together at one point. So after high school, we both kind of went different directions a little bit, pursuing different goals of our own. And he ended up moving to Seattle and going to a culinary school up there, and came back with this grand vision of something he wanted to create in Lincoln. And, as we reconnected, he inspired me to want to be a part of it. And so that's kind of how the whole thing, started. And we would be sitting in the kitchen talking about all sorts of different ingredients. And, he's listing all these things that I don't even know what they are, but they all sound unique and delicious. And we go to the store and we pick out some ingredients, and we'd come home and he'd create these dishes for my wife and I and his wife. And we just sit at the table and, joke and have fun. But I'm just, sitting here eating this food that I know I couldn't have created on my own. And there wasn't anywhere in Lincoln that I really thought I could go get something similar to this. And as he continued to talk about, how excited he was to potentially start something, I knew that I wanted to be a part of it. So
now your current main operation, and I know that you've ended up creating an umbrella company that's running different things,
mm-hmm.
right? Is Honest Abe's.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, that's my family's favorite restaurant.
Thank you.
Because, I mean, the food's delicious, and I love the flavors, these hamburgers to die for. But it also helps us meet our dietary restrictions, because the members of my family all have specific needs.
Sure.
Right? Which is great. But that wasn't your guys' first try, right?
No. So, so we started with the food truck. We wanted to do hamburgers originally. Getting out of the gates, we realized we really didn't have any money to move into a brick and mortar and take on that initial capital investment. We just didn't have it. And so then we went back to another idea that we kind of tossed around before that, in opening a food truck. And so essentially kind of what we did is we went to the bank and we asked for money, and they said, well, you don't really have what it takes for what we need. So let's come up with something else.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
What was the bank looking at? Why did they say you don't have what it takes?
So we had lack of experience.
Okay.
And then I just don't think we had enough cash to our names. So the risk reward.
You had no capital and no collateral, right?
Yeah, very little collateral. Well, my wife and I had a house, and I wasn't willing to put a lien against that. So that restricted, the amount of money that we could ask for, I guess, at that point. So the other option was to do a collateral loan, and using our titles to our wives' cars was how we ended up going about that, which was tough. So we got a $30,000, real scary, $30,000 collateral loan, based on the titles of our wife's cars, and that's that was kind of the beginning. That was when it felt real. That's like, okay, we've mentally engaged our minds in what we're going to do. We've inspired each other on the story of how we're going to start with this, and then we're going to move into this restaurant. We're going to do this, but as soon as you start signing documents at the bank, I remember walking out of the bank. And probably just in a cold sweat. I was just like, all right, this is, and I'm excited, but I'm nervous, and I was ready though. I was just, let's just get after it. Let's go.
So you were mentally ready, but what skills did you find out you weren't ready for? Like what did you learn the hard way?
I'm still finding out all the skills that I don't have.
Yeah.
Progress for me in some of those areas is kind of slow, unfortunately. But
it's for everybody.
For everyone, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Good. I'm not alone. I would say focus, organizational skills, just even understanding, how to budget the restaurant, understanding how much percentage should go towards certain things, like 30% to food and 30% to labor, and understanding all those numbers, right out the gate. I just didn't know. I'd never worked in a restaurant before. So for me, all of that was new, front counter service to back of house, grill positions, none of that had been something I've experienced. So for me, it was really kind of learning on the fly.
I know that in the articles I've read, a lot of the Fortune 500 companies are kind of aiming for a 5% profit. And, we talk about Apple and Amazon being valuated at these billions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
But they're only making really 5%.
Right.
What kind of is the average in the restaurant business for profit?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of hard to know what the average is across the board. Each genre of food, like a steakhouse, is going to have a certain percentage versus a mom and pop kind of shop where their percentages will be different. But I think they'd like to think on a national average, if you can be 10 to 15%, that's pretty good. If you're scooting closer to 20 to 25%, that's great. So yeah, we'd like to shoot for those types of numbers for sure.
The reason I ask is because I think there's a common misconception, not just for composers, but everyone, that if you're in business, you mostly make profit.
Oh, I know.
Right?
Right.
And was that a hard lesson for you to learn? Like you thought, hey, I'm going to sell a burger for $8 and I get to keep 6 of it.
Right. No, yeah,
But
that
you
was
don't.
the other thing. Yeah. I understand how much money, goes towards all that stuff. When you budget a personal budget at home, you kind of have a good idea how to do that. And when you get into the business realm, it just a lot of that changes because you're paying people and you have different insurance amounts and you have your overhead within the rent structure and all that kind of stuff. It just starts to change. I would say it was incredibly difficult, especially in the food truck, because we weren't making any money. And, when we're trying to pay off things like a generator that was like $400 and that was really hard. It was tough. It was really hard. And coming from a position where I had a steady cash flow from the job before that I wasn't working in anymore. Yeah, it was tough. Thankfully, my wife and I had savings stored away so that we could still pay our mortgage and some other stuff. Because ultimately, that was the way I lived for a while.
Was that scary eating into that?
Absolutely. Yeah, really scary because, there's no guarantee that things were going to turn around. Mm-hmm. And on a personal level, for me, I don't have a lot of education and stuff. I've been in college numerous times, never finished any degree. And so for me, I have other skills that I think that I could apply to things, but you just don't know. You just don't know how that's going to work out. So absolutely terrifying for a while. But I think, between Eric's energy and excitement and my no quit attitude, one way or the other, we're gonna make it work.
You're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you guys grow and expand, go from the food truck to something else?
Yeah, launching like concept to concept and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so we started the food truck. It's about 6 months after opening the food truck, we knew long term this isn't going to work out. It was kind of a launching pad for something else. So we knew, okay, we're going to get into this and it's going to eventually lead to a decent customer base. And then hopefully we can kind of funnel some of those resources back into a brick and mortar location. But like I just said, you're getting into it, you realize there's very not much money in this. And certainly the money that you're getting from your customers isn't going to your pocket. It's going towards all these other expenses. So that was hard, but we knew we had to do it. And so we looked back at the original location, brick and mortar spot that we had looked at for Honest Abe's the first time around that we couldn't do because we didn't have the money. And thankfully at that time, it was like, this is the right time. This is something we need to get after. And we're really fortunate. We went into this place and we didn't have to take on a lot of debt overhead because there was a lot of equipment that was there. The hood was already installed. Some of the expensive stuff that a lot of restaurants hate paying for, but that they have to, were already there. And so we were able to kind of work within kind of a tight budget. And so we had, at that point, we had hired 1 or 2 people and just a lot of testing in the kitchen for burgers and fries. So yeah, it was kind of a running the food truck, knowing that wasn't going to pan out. 6 months into it, let's get back into this brick and mortar space. And
so only 6 months with the food truck.
So we ended up having it open and closed for 1 year. 6 months into the food truck is when we started transitioning back. So Eric and I kind of co-managed how we're, I ran most of the food truck at that point, and he kind of, thankfully, worked back at the location where Honest Abe's originally opened, and he was, hard at work.
And that's the 70th and
Vine.
And Vine, right? Okay, and you've expanded that.
We have, yeah,
and you have plans for even more.
We do.
How does that work in the restaurant business?
Well, so I think what we found out that well, let me go back, because originally when we started this company, Eric and I had the dream to open up Singular Concepts, and whatever it was, we just wanted to be the best at it, and with the intent to continue to push the dining scene in Lincoln. There are some great restaurants in Lincoln, and we have, some people out there that we love eating in their restaurants, but we wanted to keep pushing that in Lincoln. And so that was kind of the mission behind what we're doing, being creative, having fun, creating a place where people love to work, but also being sincerely passionate about the food, and that being the driving force behind why restaurants are opening. But Honest Abe's just kind of taken on its own thing. And the first store just kind of outgrew itself pretty fast, and people were just packed in like sardines. And
every time I went, before you add another location, the line was out the door. It didn't matter what time of day.
Yeah, and maybe it was deceiving a little bit just because the space was so small. You get 20 people in there, it just looked absolutely packed,
But it was busy.
But it was busy, yeah. And we were, really blessed. We were very thankful for the space that we had, and very thankful for the people that were working for us, and all of our consistent customers that kept coming back. And we feel very fortunate to have that. But we knew we had to do something because there was more demand than we were able to meet. So eventually we did transition down to the corner into a larger space. But before we did that, we opened Sebastian's Table, and a Spanish tapas full service restaurant downtown.
More of the fine dining?
More of a fine dining.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Higher priced menu items, but just unique flavor combinations, things, we felt at the time, and I still believe today, that you just couldn't get anywhere else. Yeah. And so that restaurant was special. It's coming back.
Well, what happened to it the first time?
Yeah. So I think what we found out was wrong time, wrong place. People loved Sebastian's from what we could tell, but they loved it more for just like a one time out of the year, special occasion, anniversaries, or, their birthday or something. And we knew that we needed everybody else that wasn't just coming in on a one-time special occasion to dine in our restaurant more frequently for us to make it. And so the first year, it was very modestly breaking even to maybe making a slight gain. To the second year, sales had come down just a little bit. And we'd kind of hinted at internally a little bit about, well, what if we transitioned this into an Honest Abe's? And obviously we ended up doing that. But so it had been open and closed approximately 2 years. And for some people, for some restaurant owners, they would, think, man, you barely gave it a chance, because a lot of restaurants don't turn a profit for, 3 to 5 years, somewhere in there. They just have to keep going until they get more and more people familiar with their food and whatnot. But yeah, so we transitioned Sebastian's into an Honest Abe's, which has been a great decision. I think the demographic of the area is perfect.
This episode is sponsored by Dorko, the future of scoring. And we want to feature real Dorko users, so you can know that real composers out in the world today are using Dorko to make their careers happen.
My name is Reginald Unterzehr. I am a composer, conductor, voice teacher, musician of a variety of sorts. It does absolutely everything I need. Plus, every time a new feature is released, it does it with depth and clarity that I have never seen in any programs to date. Right now, I think my favorite, I'm just finally figuring out the idea of flows. I'm deep into a multi-movement choral orchestral soloist project. And so there are certain aspects of that I had not explored at all and didn't really need. And now that I see how they work, it's going to be a tremendous help when I get into the rehearsal and distribution of scores phase and revisions phase. It just makes the way that flows are set up makes it a single document that works for all the different movements of it, and I'm loving that. The number one benefit is the fact that I believe this program has legs. That there's going to be updates that come out regularly. The team that runs it is a reliable, solid team. The people who own it are responsible and have a commitment to the musical community. This was my big problem with the platform that I left. It was like, this platform has been abandoned, and I do not want to spend another cent on it. I definitely recommend Dorko. My number one thing is that it actually presents a path forward as my work continues. I am 62 years old. Learning a new program is daunting. I really like the way that the scores look. They just seem very natural. The spacings work so much better. The way that choral scores work now, the way that it works with lyrics, the way that it works with layouts, I went back to I was with the choir doing a piece that I had put together in another program 8-10 years ago. And they were asking me all kinds of questions about, what is this note and what is that? Is that a tie? Is that a slur? Is that a this thing? And I was looking back at it and I was going, oh, yeah, they really fixed that problem, didn't they? Because I don't get those questions with Dorko. People look at the notes and they play the notes or sing the notes and it makes sense. They don't have to figure out what the program meant by it. I run into problems in rehearsals oftentimes when tracking the eye across the page confuses them rhythmically. And I have not had that problem at all with Dorko. Again, it seems to be, it gets out of the way of the interface between composer's intentions and musicians reading. Rather than introducing barriers, it removes barriers. And I like that a lot.
The kind folks at Dorko have set up a special web page so you can go and download a free 30-day trial copy of Dorko. So go and do that. Have been using the program and I'm absolutely in love with it. Go to dorko.com/TPC. Let's talk about demographic, because one of the things that I often help my coaching clients and other composers think about is you have to know who you're writing for. You have to know your audience. And that can feel really limiting to a composer because, man, we are so trained and we can write in any style and don't box me in. But then you end up trying to be all things to all people and then you're nothing to anybody.
Yeah.
Is that similar in the restaurant business?
Absolutely. Yeah. Eric and I have, kind of been discouraged at times because we want to do something with the menu or be a little bit more flavor focused in a certain way that we can't, because that's just not what everybody wants. So we have learned through the years that you have to sometimes just make what people want to buy and what they want to eat. And Sebastian's was certainly part of that. And I think we realized that maybe it was just too different for your Midwestern palate, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's obviously why I think Honest Abe's thrives. But it is difficult, because we love Sebastian's and we love the food and it's, I would say, more inspired cooking there. But yeah, it was tough. So we had to learn that market. And I think the last several years we have, gathered some of the idea of what it is that people like, and maybe where in Lincoln are people willing to dine out for that type of menu. And
you spoke about making food that people want to eat, and it's true. But where's the line from just kind of like, I'm just giving you what you want and I'm making something amazing?
Yeah.
Come have it.
Yeah, it's tough. That's really hard. Because I do think that there's probably always a little bit of give and take there. It can't be only inspired. Sometimes it has to be by yourself. I mean, I think that sometimes you have to have influence in that kind of stuff. So, and maybe it's from your childhood, what you used to like, but what other people kind of like. So you try and change that a little bit, but it is hard. I think it's a thin line with Sebastian's probably, because it's a more specialized menu where you have, you want to stick to your guns and you want to be as authentic and, if you can be as local as you can with certain cuisine, but you also know that those recurring bills don't go away and you have to continue to meet that. And so, yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
And what about marketing?
Yeah.
You got to get people in the door.
Yeah.
How does a restaurant do that well?
So marketing has kind of been something we don't really feel like we know exactly how to market ourselves yet, which sounds crazy to some people maybe because we've had some people ask us how we do it. I think we're fortunate with our branding in itself is unique. And I think that a lot of people connect to that, which is cool. And I'm not just talking about Honest Abe's. I think some of the other concepts that we've tried and didn't work out, people really still seem to just love the fun in the name or just kind of the idea behind it. So for us, as far as marketing goes, I just don't feel like we have it figured out yet. We don't know. A lot of restaurants will say, well, you need to do radio ads and you need to do self-mailers and you need to do billboards and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know that we're convinced that any of that necessarily, turns more tables. We have done some of those things. We've had billboards and radio. So primarily, I think what we like is social media. That's really, in terms of saving cost, you can have, an ad on Facebook that you pay $100 for that might reach 5,000 people.
And you can target them exactly to the people who would come.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right. Yeah. To the people that are already paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that for us has really worked well. Long term, I think, if we have more Honest Abe's in the future, I think we have to be a little bit more strategic with that. But yeah, unfortunately, we just haven't figured it out. We know some people who are in the marketing. We've worked with a couple local places that are very good at what they do, and they've come up with some really fun, creative ideas. So we're still working on that.
So the idea of a high-end burger is kind of popular right now, right? You have Smash Burger, Shake Shack, all this stuff. It's a kind of a national trend.
Yeah.
What I fear, I don't know, I'm projecting onto your business, is that we don't want it to become a commodity, right? Like McDonald's is a commodity.
Sure.
They just keep getting cheaper and cheaper, and they still have a dollar menu.
Yeah.
Right? But
right.
There's consequences to that.
Yeah.
How do you, and I think composers balance this too, because there's so much music in the world. How do you not become a commodity? What's the value add?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, sometimes we use the phrase, it's a race to the bottom. Mm-hmm. People talk about cutting costs or changing the oil in the fryers or to whatever it is that's just it's lower, quality, but it saves a little bit of money here. And I think that we always know that if we're pushing quality and not just the food, but in the service, that alone is a reason why people would want to come back. That's a tough one. Yeah, that's a tough one because as we've grown, I guess we've seen certain ways where if we change this ingredient or if we change that thing, then it's going to reduce this percentage by this much. And it gets tempting, but we know that the ultimate goal, the reason we set off, with this dream was we want to build something that people talk about. Somebody in Lincoln, Nebraska is going to fly to, San Diego or Oregon or somewhere like that, and they're going to eat a similar type menu item, whether it's burgers or something else. And it might be great. It might be something that they love. But my hope is that they say, but my hometown does it better. And, I love Honest Abe's. And, that's if I get a burger, that's where I'm going back, So that's kind of inspiring to me. So when I think about that, then I don't want to change these certain ingredients, or I don't want to cut corners financially, just to make a little bit more. So I don't know. Long term, yeah, you're right. I think that could do that. Like I said, we classify that kind of, or call it a race to the bottom.
Yeah, I don't think you want to do that. You don't want to play that game.
No, we don't. Yeah.
And I don't think composers want to, but it's really tempting because it looks like an easy win.
Yeah.
But then you just lowering your profit margins ever more.
Yeah.
In the end.
Well, and the other thing is, what is it that we really love about what we do? Mm-hmm. Obviously we're creating a product for our guests, for the consumers to enjoy. But what is it that we're still getting out of it? And that's where I'm talking about the passion behind the flavors and the creativity behind the food and the excitement for our brand and all that stuff is, part of the reason we got into this and selling our soul a little bit if we start changing those kind of things. So it's for us as well as a consumer. We don't want to start dropping our standards. That's for sure.
Right. Have you ever heard of Kevin Kelly? He's a futurist, founder of Wired magazine. And
I'm familiar with Wired, but not the name.
Really cool guy. Yeah, I got to interview him, actually. But he has this blog post called 1,000 True Fans. I mean, it's this theory he created that, and he applies it towards artists, but I imagine it would apply for you too. You really only need 1,000 fans, people who are super dedicated to what you're producing, who will follow what you're doing and they'll buy your content. And he defines that as someone who's willing to spend $100 every year, right? So that's 100K.
Mm-hmm.
And for an artist, that's a better than average living, right? Obviously, I think your numbers are different when you're in the restaurant world and you have dozens of employees and other things. But there's got to be that sense of finding the right audience, 1,000 true fans. How did you guys do that?
Definitely, we started with the food truck. It was a trendy thing to do. Some people call it the cult following. I don't know if I want to classify it as that, but we certainly had people that loved the food truck food, the comfort food, the sandwiches. And so when we transitioned to going to burgers, we had just like this core group of people that just were just like,
they were going to do whatever you did.
Yeah.
Your food. Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like they would just follow us no matter what we did. And so I think that's part of it. And those people kind of wanted to talk about something. So we kind of created, I think, this, again, cult following of people that were like in love with our food. And then they just wanted to share how much they loved it with their friends and their family. And I remember when we started Honest Abe's, and I was working the front counter for a while, and I would ask somebody, how have you heard about us? And a lot of times it's just, my friend's been here, and they just love it. And they just told me, you got to go. You just got to go. And I remember hearing that like several times every day. So I think that had a lot to do with it. People just fell in love with the product, and then they just wanted to go share the good news with their friends and family. And yeah.
No, that's amazing. Well, that's what you want though, right?
Yeah. And that is creating the demand, right? Like creating a product that people want, that they can't wait to get back and try it again. And
I mean, as a composer, that's what I want. Slowly building a group of people who like the music I'm writing and want me to continue making more.
Yeah.
Right? The hard part is cultivating that. Obviously, for composer, it's music that is resonating some way. It sounds good to these people.
Uh-huh.
And for food, it tastes good.
Right.
But not everyone likes Honest Abe's.
No, definitely. Yeah. No, we've had people that, and you can get online and get discouraged. If you get online and maybe you feel the same way, but you get online and you read some reviews about some of your food, it can be a little discouraging.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard because, and you said it earlier, you can't be everything to everyone. You can't be the perfect outfit for each person. And we know that. So we're driven to be the best that we can be, and, just kind of let the chips fall where they may. But yeah, you're right. We definitely had some people that really don't like our product, and they don't want to come back, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely okay.
Yeah. I just sent an email out to my mailing list this week, talking about something I'm thinking about doing. And I had like 5 unsubscribes, in 20 minutes.
Oh, man.
And that always feels like, what did I do wrong? But on the other hand,
wait, go back.
Right.
Yeah.
But then they were probably never going to be one of those 1,000 true fans. They were never really that invested.
Yeah.
So it's better.
Right.
I want people on my list to be like, what's happening? What can I learn?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Same feeling here. Yeah. I feel the same way. Like we don't want to just, like we're talking about earlier, just kind of just cutting corners and just so that everybody will like it. Like we're very unique in what we do. We talk about the flavors is king in our food. Like most places think that, but a lot of people are like, well, it's only about the beef patty. And for us, the beef patty is very important. No doubt. It's a hamburger, but the rest of the ingredients that go onto it or make it just takes it up another notch. Yeah. And we put a lot of focus into that. And we know that some of the burgers on our menu are not going to be popular with a lot of people. And that's just the way it is. And we're okay with that. A lot of people seem to like it, which we're fortunate in that regard. But yeah.
But if you just keep, okay, let's set the concept up for how Honest Abe's works. Mm-hmm. How does the menu work? Because people who are listening to this don't know.
Okay. Yeah. So on the left-hand side, we're going to have the originals. There'll be 5 burgers listed on the left-hand side.
And they're always there.
And they're always there. Yeah. And on the right-hand side, we'll have a rotating set of burgers. So every quarter throughout the year, we'll rotate 4 new burgers into the same place where the last 4 burgers were. And then we'll have a weekly special. So we have probably over 200 burgers with their recipes kind of waiting in the wing for when that rotation comes back. And then usually we select from the most popular burgers that we've had, and we can look at that from our sales. We can just see how many times certain burgers have been ordered, or we can get onto Facebook and see how many likes we've had for certain posts. And
right.
So we do that a different way. But yeah, so that's kind of how it's set. And then we have a couple different fry offerings, and then we do shakes, and then your beverages, your typical beverages.
So it's pretty simple.
A pretty simple menu,
right? And if you just keep adding things, you end up becoming like a deli or not a deli, but like a cafe kind of a la carte, anything you want. A diner. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yep.
You don't want to be a diner. No. That's a commodity.
Right. And we're not a diner. And knowing who you are is important. And we do know we're just, and sometimes I'll use the phrase, we sell 2 things. We sell burgers and we sell service. And I really want people to just zone in on their skills. If you're front of house, let's just crush it. Like you just love the people that are coming in, treat them right, and deliver the food as fast as you can. If you're in the back of house, you do everything you can to make the food the right way, the way we've instructed, and treat it with care. But yeah, keeping it simple, it's really ultimately, I think, what people want when they come into a restaurant, and a restaurant like ours, a fast casual type restaurant, they don't want to be bombarded with this laundry list of ingredients. They want to look at 20 different menu items. They want to just come in and know what it is that they're going to be getting. And then, once they get there and they see something, it's an easy selection because it looks delicious or sounds amazing. So,
yeah. Tell me a story about one of the hardest lessons you had to learn after starting this whole adventure.
I think when we started this, we've always wanted to create a culture inside of our workplace that people love to be a part of and they love to work there. So for me, like, I'm definitely passionate about food, but I'm also very passionate about people and making sure that not just our guest is taken care of, but our employees are as well. And that to me is an ongoing thing. But that's been the hardest. It's hard to single out just one thing, but for me, constantly pursuing to make sure we are doing everything we can to create an environment where people feel valued, respected, cared for, that they're pushed to excel. They might come in with a certain set of skills, and I really do hope that when they leave, they've gained something from us. And sometimes it doesn't work out like that, and you've worked really hard to do something right by somebody, and it kind of blows up in your face a little bit. So that
happens to composers too.
Yeah. And so for us, I think, so that's hard. So that's for me, the hardest lesson is that you just deal with that. I remember the first time we had to let somebody go, and I hated it. I really hated it. Like it didn't sit well with, very well with me. And so, as far as those things, and growth is hard. When we grow from one Abe's to a second Abe's to a third Abe's, and we are scheduling to open a fourth Abe's in Lincoln, that's made things even more challenging. And so, I think we want to have like what I consider a student mentality, somebody that's always willing to keep learning and growing my mind and reading more books or learning from a mentor or just staying sharp on that kind of stuff as far as leadership is concerned. Because as you grow, you do kind of slowly remove yourself from certain elements inside the restaurant. And that's also in itself been really hard.
I think the most successful composers do that too. Over time, they build a team, right? That are basically employees that handle a lot of the day-to-day so you can do the high-level stuff, which for composers, that's writing music. And for you guys, that's probably, crafting the best menu choices you can make.
Yeah.
One challenge that I think is common for many people is the life balance issue. So we're trying really hard to build these businesses, and it's slow to get launched. It takes a lot of effort. And we're probably working one or two jobs at the same time. And we might have significant others and families. I know you're married with kids.
Right.
How did that work
crazy.
Before the tipping point? Like, any advice or insight?
Yeah, well, I mean, for starters, if you're really going to go into something and start something fresh, you got to make sure you're doing what you love, and you got to be doing it for the right reasons, because it is going to take time away from your family. It's going to take time away from other passions or hobbies that you might have in your life, and then also just understanding that it's not just going to take time away, but it's going to take time in itself to grow something or to get it to a place where you've been dreaming it to get to. But that's been hard. Yeah. So my wife Emily, she's been incredibly supportive this entire time. She loves what we're doing. She loves to be part of this thing with me. We're fortunate to have great business partners in Eric and Jess, and the relationship that we have with them has always been strong through this whole process. And so I feel like we just have a great team of people around us as well that have made it easier, but it has taken time away from my family. And has taken time away from, like I said, other hobbies and things that at one point I really enjoyed to do. And we're getting that time back. I do think that because we've continued to hire people who are more skilled and smarter than us in certain ways, we freed up some time for our family, which has to come first. It has to be a priority to us over work. We're doing this for our family, but they still have to be, number one priority in our life. I'm trying to remember back when we started Sebastians. Well, even in the food truck era, I mean, we were still working a ton of hours. But when we had Sebastians off the ground, I mean, we'd be there in the morning, and then at 8-9 o'clock a.m. getting things ready to go, and then by 1 a.m. the very next morning we're still there, counting down the drawers or figuring out what we did right or didn't do right, and how we could get better the next day, and then we get back after it. I mean, we were doing pushing 90 plus hours a week. That was hard. It was hard with, a couple of young kiddos at home, and my wife is, holding down the fort, and then I'm coming home exhausted, and I I'm getting right back after the next day, and tough. Worth it. Definitely worth it, but it was hard.
Sure. I know that you've got to go. So any last thoughts, words? Anything that occurs to you that's about the relationship of music and what you do?
Oh, man. I love music.
And you're a drummer, by the way, make that clear. I've made music with you. It's been great.
Yeah. Oh, it was fun. I'm playing with you. You make it easier when you're skilled. You make me sound good. So I think just loving music is it's just a different language. And I think food you can kind of wrap that up into that, like we were talking earlier, as an art. And my final comment would be just to be passionate for what you do and go about it for the right purpose. Stay true to who you are. I know that sounds cliche, and it is, but it really is what matters, because, whether you succeed at a high level or just an average level, you're going to really just still continue to enjoy what you do. Yeah, I guess on the composing side, I don't know how to add too much to that.
Sure.
I love what you do, and I think it's amazing. And I think that if I sat in one day in your chair, I would be mesmerized pretty fast by how hard it is to do what you do.
I think ultimately you'd be bored.
Maybe
it takes a lot of
patience.
A lot of patience.
Yeah.
But we could give Eric a box of random ingredients like that television show, and he could come up with something that would taste great.
Oh, he would.
I can't do that.
Yeah, I know.
I have like 4 things I cook well.
Yeah, I mean, I make a solid mac and cheese.
Yeah.
Right out of the box.
Just follow the
instructions. I've got that figured out.
Yeah.
I can make PB&J sometimes. It's killer. Yeah.
Well, that's great.
I do really appreciate you having me.
Oh, thanks for your time. This has been great. So anyone, if you're coming through Lincoln, ever stop at Honest Dave's. There was a listener of the show who came through town last year. He said, "Hey, are you available?" And we went and got a coffee and talked, and we spoke through a lot of things he's working on in his career. And then he said, "Well, we should go get lunch."
Mm-hmm.
So go to Honest Dave's.
Oh, thank you.
So he and his extended family, they all went. They loved it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm one of your fans. I'm one of your 1,000 true fans.
Thank you.
Just a quick word here. We're only a few episodes away from episode 200, which is a pretty monumental achievement for me. That means I've been doing the podcast for a really long time. Most podcasts fade out after, I think the record is 7 episodes, and they call it pod fading. But this podcast has not. It has held strong. And I want to celebrate that as we get to episode 200. And I want your help to help celebrate that. Please send me an email. You can do that through the contact form at theportfoliocomposer.com. And let me know what your favorite episode was and what the biggest takeaway was from that episode. So 2 things I'm asking you to do. Tell me what your favorite episode was and then what your biggest takeaway was. If you have more than one, feel free to share that. You don't have to limit it. But I'm trying to put together something special, and I want to know what your favorite episodes are. This episode is brought to you by Dorko, the music notation software from Steinberg. The brand new Dorko Pro 2 introduces best-in-class support for composing to picture. Using the same powerful new video engine found in Cubase and Nuendo, attach a video to your project. Play it back via the dedicated video window and see thumbnails in play mode. Add markers at crucial points in the action and display them in the score. Use the new tempo automation controls in play mode to line markers up with beats, or find a tempo for the whole cue. New tools in play mode allow you to edit the tempo and dynamics of your music graphically, applying default curves to provide more nuance to gradual tempo and dynamic changes. Add lanes for MIDI controllers and draw data to bring your music to life. With Dorko 2's new automation tools, you can add realism and nuance to the virtual performance of your music, taking it one step closer to the stage or concert hall without leaving your music notation software. And that's only the beginning. Check out the brand new Dorko website at dorko.com/TPC to find out more.